Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento, and I'll tell you what, today's episode is really focusing at the intersection of so many important things for all of our business, because I want to say that I'm talking to a marketer here today, but that's not the entire truth, because this is someone who also has a very deep understanding of branding. It's someone who has a very deep understanding of web development and user experiences. We're probably going to say that word 50 times here today. This is someone who has so much knowledge and works with some of the best brands in the world, brands that we've all heard of, brands that we all love. So I'm excited to tell you all about today's guest. His name is Rolando Rojas. Rolando is the founder of Elliptic Marketing, which is a boutique marketing agency based in Miami that helps high-end brands provide elevated digital experiences to their customers. If you're sitting here thinking, my business doesn't provide a digital experience, we're going to talk about what those are and how you can start to incorporate them in your business, in your onboarding flow, in your customer's experience with your business. Before leading Elliptic Marketing, Rolando worked for iconic brands such as Christian Dior, Swatch Group, and Basecamp, which is a huge and important tech company that I know a lot of you listeners use in your businesses as well. He manages his company from South Florida, where he lives with his wife and his 1-year-old son. And I want to tell you one thing that really stood out when we came across Rolando's business is the headline on his website says, "We're a development agency focused on marketing." And that's why I say that he plays at such an important intersection that impacts all of our businesses. We're all going to learn a lot today. I'm not going to say anything else. Let's dive straight into my interview with Rolando Rojas. All right, Rolando, I'm so excited to have you here with us today. First things first, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Heck yes, you have done so many cool things in your career, both as an entrepreneur and even before your entrepreneurial career began. So you've got to take us beyond the bio. Who's Rolando? How'd you start doing all these amazing things?
So I'm originally from Venezuela. I moved here to the US when I was about 21 years old. And something funny is that I didn't really want to do marketing when I was, at university or when I was growing up. I wanted to be an engineer. I like to tinker a lot with anything digital. So I was a lot into web development, making applications, just engineering things. And my dad's an engineer, and he is also a business owner. And one thing he told me was, if you really like engineering, that should be your hobby. But really what's going to help you go further in your career is to focus on business. So that's how I ended up in marketing. I thought, what's the one thing I wouldn't want to delegate to someone else? And that was marketing. So that's what I went for. And it turns out I ended up loving it. And I hope I'm get to do it for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I love that overview, especially because, Rolando, now I know who to ask for where I should get arepas next time I'm in Miami. So that is very good to know. But I want to ask you about that, because when we talk about your journey in marketing, I mean, you've been very fortunate in working with some of the coolest brands in the world. You did that in your professional career. You're also doing it with your own business. With Elliptic, you really focus on that luxury brand market. Talk to us about what makes those brands so different. What is it about that luxury market that just pulled you in and really identified that niche for you?
So one thing about luxury is that there is a big difference between the value that you pay for the product itself and the value that you pay for the experience. And we can think about cars, for example. The difference between getting like a Toyota or BMW or a Lamborghini, the difference in price doesn't match with the difference in performance. So where is the rest of the value going? It's going into the experience of buying the car, to having it, the details that go into the car, and it's just how the product makes you feel more than how the product performs. And this translates into everything luxury. It translates into vacations, perfumes, watches, and basically everything that you would consider luxury. It's about the experience.
Yeah. Rolando, I've done this for a long time, over 1,000 episodes. I've never heard anyone articulate it as simply, but as effectively as you just did, that the difference in price doesn't necessarily quantify the difference in performance. And you chalk that up to the difference in experience and feel. Give us some examples, because I do feel like very frequently in the business world, we do use cars as the example because it's very easy. You know, the old adage of, well, my car takes me from A to B, whether it's a Lamborghini or a Toyota, that's true. But there's something more to it. And you talk about perfume, for example. What's that difference? Because a lot of people just think of a purchase as a transaction and they miss what encompasses that feeling. What are those things? Is it before the transaction? Is what happens after the transaction? Walk us through where those touch points are that you look at to build those luxury moments.
Yeah, I can give you an example that always came to mind. So years ago, I used to have a Mazda 3, so not a luxury car. And my friend had a Mercedes. I don't remember the model, but it was a nice car. And I remember every time I closed the door on his car, it felt so nice. Like the door would close perfectly and it would make like this really solid sound. And, you know, my car had doors too, and they closed too, and they closed well. But it was the feeling that his car, had just with this thing, like the door would shut and it was like a perfect sound, like a perfect fit. That is some of the things that you get with luxury. Like you get to go to the next level with these details. In perfumes, you have the story that goes behind the perfume. So this wasn't just a person trying to come up with something to sell. It usually comes with a rich backstory. Some of the best brands have their own fields of flowers, and they have experts that are cultivating it, and they are using it for the raw product of the perfume. And they have people that design the bottle in very special ways, and it really comes with all the whole experience of buying the product. It's different. It makes you it enriches the value that you get from the product.
Yeah, even hearing you talk about this, what it's really bringing me back to is the first time I finally signed up for a credit card that had a high annual fee. It was almost $1,000 in annual fees. And I thought, what's all the hype about? What's this going to look like? And Rolando, even from the second I got the box that the card was delivered, it felt like a presentation. I felt like I was joining this exclusive club for this credit card. And that showed me really what that high-end experience is like. So I've got to ask you while we've got you here today, we all want to learn about how we can incorporate that into our businesses. And I want to ask you specifically about the digital side of the world, because you create these experiences even online, even from someone just landing on a business website. How do we translate these experiences into a digital format?
So we do a lot of events. So I feel that that's going to be a good example here. So look, some of our clients do events at points of sale. So you may have been to like a Macy's or a Sephora, and you see a brand having an event for a launch of a new product or something like that. We try to get the experience to start weeks before the customer actually goes to the event. So usually something that the brand tries to do is to build an audience of people that are going to go to the event well before the event starts. So they may have a database of previous customers. So a lot of what we do is we create invitations online that we send maybe via email, SMS, or WhatsApp if it's in Latin America. Then we direct people into a website where they can learn about what they're going to see at the store, the new products that the brand is going to launch, what can they expect to get as an experience. And once people sign up, we usually continue the process of sending, we send a confirmation, we send a reminder, we ask people to check in before the event, we send them directions, we confirm like their time and date. And after the event, we also send follow-ups. For example, these are the products that you saw. We thank you. We thank people for coming, and we just try to keep the experience going. And something that helps me think about this process is something I learned from my marketing classes, that you are the happiest about an experience right before you go through the experience and later on as you are remembering it. So if you think, let's think about going on vacation. You're planning your vacation now and you're thinking of all these great things that you're going to do with your family or with your friends, and you're hyping yourself up all the time before the vacation. Then you go through the vacation, say the day before, probably your hype level is at 9. You're super excited. You're going to hop on the plane. Everything's going to go great. Then as you go to the vacation and you're experiencing real things, sometimes, you have to get into the plane, and maybe that's not a great experience. Maybe you have to catch a cab. Maybe the hotel is a little bit late. So your level of, hype goes from a 9 to like a 7. And then it's probably pretty, steady throughout the experience. And you eventually, you finish your vacation, you go back home. But then a year later, when you are remembering it, you are remembering the best parts of the vacation. So your hype level goes all the way like 9 or 10 again. So really, the moments that you experience the vacation or the event as at its highest is right before and after the event. So this is where we come in. We're trying to make sure that the before of the event is as better as it could be, getting people excited, getting people hyped, getting people prepared, so they don't. So we minimize the negative things about the event. And once it finishes, we want to remind people of really the best parts of what they experience. So we want to make sure that both ends of the event are as great or even better than the event itself.
Yeah, I love that perspective because, Rolando, it really shows the fact that you brought it to that vacation example is something that we can all relate to. And I think that shows how much you think like the people on the receiving end of these experiences are, which obviously is very important. Even in marketing, we always hear, have your customer avatar in mind and write all of your copy to that. So I want to ask you this, just as someone who knows all about the various talents and skills that you've got. Everything that I found online about you is so polished, it's so clean, it's so well done. And with that in mind, I think to myself, well, Rolando's really good at web development, for example. He's really great at websites, but you've also talked about email marketing and all the reminders that you put into there. And he's really good at copy, and he's really good at understanding the customer journey, not just the experience, but all the steps along the way. What are those places that your mind goes, especially when I think about the website? What is it a combination of? Because I know it's many things that we all take for granted because we see the finished product, but is it the copy? Is it the visuals? Is it the flow? How do you even go about thinking about a website and making sure all of the ingredients are in the right place and in the right proportions?
Something I like to do is stick to the basics. If you go to the world before digital marketing was a thing, and you see the kinds of signs that a store would have on its storefront, it was very simple. Cleaners, grocery store. It was very simple. The sign just said what the store was offering, and I think we have really gone too far away from that. And sometimes we want to put really fancy copy on things. And really when someone is visiting your site, the first thing that they want to know is what do you do? What do you sell? So when you were mentioning that example of the copy that we have right on our website, like we're the web development agency that focuses on marketing, I think it's a variation of that. That's what we do. We want to distill it into as fewer words as possible, and it's really difficult. We change that line every few months, and I'm never happy with it. I'm always trying to improve it, and I'm always trying to make it simpler. So really, the copy is very important, and this is also something that I was lucky enough to learn from really experienced people, like Jason Fried from Basecamp. He has a very good eye to write very short and simple copy. So that's something that I took. And every time I have to write copy, I use very simple language, very short sentences, and just go straight to the point. There's always space and time to go into details, but you don't want to shove those details into people's faces, especially at the beginning. You just want to tell them what you do, why they should pick you, and then if they want to go into the details, they can.
Yeah, Rolando, hearing that, it's really cool getting some real life insights from Basecamp, for example, where you've done a lot of awesome work. I'd love for you to take us behind the scenes, just knowing that you've worked with such incredible brands, Christian Dior, Swatch Group, obviously Basecamp. You gave us one example about that short, punchy, effective copy. What are some of those things that you took away from those experiences?
I have been very lucky to have very good bosses throughout my career. So when I was in Christian Dior, one of my bosses, his name was Luis. He was the way, if you could think that Christian Dior was a person. I mean, not the actual Christian Dior, but a person in today. He would be it. Very elegant guy. Very educated, and he taught me a lot about the experiences, like simple things like when you book a meeting, make sure everyone has it in their calendar, make sure everyone knows where it is, make sure that you keep the meeting on track, and make sure that you give everyone a summary when you're done. Even though this is not something that is related to the business, it's related to the experience that you give your internal customers. And I apply everything that he taught me in life. If we are inviting people over, I make sure that everyone knows all the details, where they're supposed to park, what we're gonna do. So the experience really starts well before they get here. That was a really big thing. When I work at Longines, also one of my bosses in Switzerland, his name is Charles, and he taught me something that was also very important, not as much related to the industry and luxury, but just to be really firm about your beliefs. And sometimes if you feel strongly about something, you should fight for it, even if there's a risk for you. That's what separates you from the rest, being able to stand up for your ideas. And sometimes you have to pound the table, as he would say, and say, no, this is what we're going to do. And usually that comes with a risk. What if you mess up? What if you're wrong? But what if you're right? And if you're right, you become part of that select group of people that others will say they know what they're doing. And from Basecamp, I was lucky enough to work with Jason Fried and with DHH, and they also have this idea that simple is better, that you really shouldn't overcomplicate things, that small teams are better, and all of those, I believe, are true, and I have used them in my professional life, and they have really made me a better marketer.
Yeah, Rolando, it's so cool hearing all of these experiences because you've picked up the good stuff all along the way. And what I'm really hearing as the common thread across all of those experiences, high standards of excellence. Even to that small example of you saying, make sure everyone has the meetings on their calendar. That's just holding yourself to a high standard of excellence along with your teams. And it sounds like Basecamp very much had those small, intimate teams where you all did that for each other. That's awesome. And what I really like about every entrepreneur's story is that that you get to take these awesome experiences from your professional career, but also do things in your own way. And with Elliptic, obviously you have built a company that reflects those positive things you picked up from your professional career, but also ingredients that are innate in you and part of your personality, part of your upbringing. So I'd love to hear some of that comparison and contrasting of how have you enabled Elliptic to represent all of those things that are deeply embedded into you and the way that you want your company to show up in the world.
It's funny. I never thought I would have an agency. And the story of how this came up was that when I was working at one of these companies, large brands usually they have multiple agencies just because there's many, many fields where you can't have experts everywhere. So you hire a bunch of agencies. And I remember early in my career, I was in charge of sending marketing emails for one of these big brands. And just because logistics can be a little bit difficult sometimes, we had to schedule emails, like marketing emails, very close to the delivery date. So sometimes I would only have like a couple of days in advance, one day in advance. And I had this agency, and they knew this was a thing. But many times I would ask them, hey, can you send this today? It's 10 a.m. Can you send it by 5 today? We'll try to do things quickly. And many times they wouldn't reply, or they would reply and there would be errors in the copy, or something happened and the email wouldn't go out in time. And at the end of the day, I couldn't just say to my boss, it's the agency's fault, right? It was my responsibility. When something was late, it was on me. So this agency was making me look bad. And this is something that I remembered. It's not only about the business, it's about the employee and the person just talking to the agency. You're making the business look bad, but you also making them personally look bad. You're affecting their livelihood. And as I moved on through my career, I kept encountering these agencies that they would just not work well. You would have, a lot of account managers coming in and coming out, and they wouldn't know your business. You would have large teams that apparently they would try to put together to work on something for you. And the experiences were never good. And basically just one day I thought, if the bar is this low, and I don't want to make it sound bad, but if the bar was this low, I can probably make it better. And in their defense, providing good service it's difficult everywhere. It's not only for agencies. It's difficult to provide good service in a restaurant or in a hotel. You need to train people, and you need to get everyone in the same page about how they should treat a customer. So, but this was my main thing when I started Elliptic Marketing. I wanted to provide a good agency. I wanted to provide a good experience. I wanted to always bring solutions, never bring a problem without having one or two solutions to propose, and make sure to be always responsive. And even the experience was always first, even more important than the final product. Of course, you want a final product to be very refined and of high quality, but the experience that we gave to the customer was our number one priority, and it still is.
Yeah, Rolando, I really appreciate how you called out. I want to reiterate that for listeners about the bar being low, because it can sound harsh if we're saying that here on the air. But the truth is that in today's world, especially with AI and modern technologies replacing and really providing different ways of doing things, caring, that human element, so many of the ingredients that we've seen here from you today in our conversation, these are the things that set that higher bar. Those things, it's never been a lower bar with regards to people who are willing to go that extra mile. And so if you're willing to do that, listeners, this speaks to all of you. It's not just Rolando who has this unfair advantage. If you're willing to care more than the average agency, than the average enterprise level company, that there's a huge chance for you to succeed. And Rolando, I love the fact that this has embedded itself into the way that you operate as an agency. And so I want to ask you this question. I don't always ask our guests this question, but just knowing that you have an immigrant story, I'm the son of an immigrant mom. And so I've always argued that there's something about that immigrant mindset that plants those entrepreneurial seeds into our minds, that it's in our DNA. And it definitely sounds like you have that in your family as well. How has that factored into the way that you view work, the way that you view possibilities, the way that you view starting your own business? I'd love to hear how that journey has played into your mindset and your DNA.
Perhaps being from another country always gave me 2 points of view about everything. There's many things that I came to learn about the American market and the American way of doing things that they were clearly superior to how things are done in other countries. But sometimes there are also good alternatives that we don't consider here. And one of the things about working with luxury companies, many of them are European, is that mindset always comes into play. There's a European way of doing things, and Europeans do very well with luxury. Sometimes you have to adapt those ideas to the American market. So you have to learn how to mix those 2 points of view together. And, just having been born in a different country and being able to see these two different points of view in daily life for many years, it just helps you assimilate that when it's in a business setting.
Yeah, that's a really important perspective. And I'm even picturing just your geographic region, living in Miami, and especially just go to Brickell and you'll feel like you're seeing some of the most high-end luxury brands in the world and the way their storefronts are positioned. And I love the fact that you called out even the European cultural differences. You just have such this melting pot, Rolando, that you get to pick up all of these experiences. What are some of those differences? Because even hearing you say that out loud, it makes me realize how much we don't necessarily consider here in the United States, how different our market is. We're used to having a million different options. I mean, Amazon has certainly changed the game for us as consumers as well. We can access most brands and have it the same day in most American cities. So what are some of those differences in markets that you see that we can glean and maybe pick up some of the advantages of the way that Europeans do things or South American countries do things?
I think American companies are the best in the world in terms of efficiency and logistics. So whenever we had to do an event, or whenever we just had to, get products from A to B, doing it in the US, you felt that we had an advantage. But the Europeans have maybe I don't want to say better, but just different way of viewing things in terms of work culture. And this is not universal, but just in my experience, sometimes if we had business lunch in Europe, we would try to take a little bit of time to have coffee, leave work aside for a little bit, try to build a more personal experience, and then get back to business. Where in the US, I feel like we're trying to be very efficient about our time. And, if we only have 2 hours here and I traveled for this, let's make sure that we spend as much time as we can talking about business and, making things better. But I think the let's say the truth lies somewhere in the middle. Having a good relationship with someone is very important, with your coworkers, with clients. You probably have heard people make business with people that they like. So not necessarily the people that provide the best value or the best product, but people that they like. So bringing that from Europe and from Latin America, where we're trying to be maybe a little bit more personable and not focus as much on efficiency, it's good. And then once you have that business in your hand and you can use all the American efficiency and the way of doing business, it's a great mix. It's I would say we have an advantage being in the US. It's just having that mindset of efficiency and of growing business is just very powerful. And I think that's what makes this a great country to do business in.
Yeah, really well said. I love the fact that you called out the truth is almost always somewhere in the middle. It's really blending all of those things. And to me, as someone who comes from an immigrant family, that's what I view. It truly is that blending, that meshing of all these different experiences, perspectives that you've shared with us here today, Rolando. So I want to squeeze two more questions in. I knew we'd be short on time because there's so many different topics that you can talk about. But anytime I have someone from the marketing world on, and you obviously also come from the development side of the world, but also working with luxury brands, it's such an important intersection. And of course, AI is impacting all of those industries. What's your view on it? What's the role that AI is playing within your business and the way that you help clients? And then even on a more macro level, what's your view of how AI is going to play into the luxury brand market, the world of marketing, the world of development?
We use a little bit of AI, most likely as much people use it, just trying to avoid repetitive tasks, trying to parse long texts and distill it into something easier to read. But something that I think AI will never be able to do is just to be creative. Just the way AI, like LLMs are built, they're basically coming up with one word after the other. And you can put this to a test. You can ask like ChatGPT, like, give me an answer that's exactly 5 words long. And many times it will fail because it's just coming up. It can't plan ahead. And it's all a rehash of other information that is just mixing together and creating answers. So the creativity that you would get from a writer, someone writing a song, someone writing a movie or a play, you will never be able to get that from AI. Just ask AI to tell you a joke. They're usually pretty bad, just because there's not that creativity. And in the world of marketing, I think we have to be very creative. Every time someone has a good idea, other people start replicating it. And once enough people do it, now the idea is not special anymore and you have to go into the next thing. So I think using AI, it's always going to put you either at the same standard as everyone else or slightly behind, but you will never be ahead. You will never be the one with that great idea that's bringing you a lot of business and just changing the industry.
Boom. That is really well said. That's the real stuff. I feel like mainstream media wants to have all these conversations about AI, but Rolando, coming from a real life entrepreneur who's interacting with brands, consumers at so many different levels, that's the truth. And I so appreciate your transparency and your perspective there. And the last question, it's right in line with what you just said, because AI would put this question into a box, but it's a big, broad one that you can take in any direction that you want. And that is, what's your one best piece of advice? The one takeaway, knowing that we're being listened to by entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs at all different stages of their business growth journey. What's that one nugget of knowledge or action that you want to impart on all of them at the end of today's episode?
Now, I'll try to put this in a short story. But when I was started the agency, we were doing basic things like email marketing, some advertising. And one day, one of these large customers comes in and they ask us if we can develop software for them. So they were using something like Dropbox, and they just wanted something that was special for them, very branded. So they asked us, like, can you build us something like Dropbox, but only for us and with the things that we want? And I think they asked, like, have you built something like that? And in that second, my mind went to so many different things. Like first, I had no idea how I would do something like that. Had no experience doing it. I was used to doing other things. But the last thought that came to my mind was, can I figure it out? And the answer was yes. So we say yes to the project. And once we started the project, I remember thinking, if I'm going to fail in this, I need to fail quickly. So I know what my next step is going to be. So I took the most difficult part of the project and the most boring part of the project that I remember was like getting all the security set up. And I worked on that first. And this is something that I apply now in many projects in my business life, personal life. Start with the most difficult and boring thing first. Because if you're going to fail, it's better that you fail early. You don't put a lot of work and then, 2 months later, figure out that you can't do the difficult part. And also you have this thing, you have something to look forward to. If you're working on the boring thing, okay, the next thing is going to be very exciting. It's going to keep me, going. If you leave the boring stuff for the rest, now your energy is depleted at the end and your projects may fall over. So when I have people asking me, like, what should I do to start a company? Probably the thing that they don't want to do is to find customers. If you're designing t-shirts, you want to design the t-shirts. You don't want to build a customer list. That's difficult. That's boring. That's what you should do first. Because if you fail on that, then the idea completely is going to fail. But if you succeed, then everything else that's going to come your way, it's going to be exciting and it's going to bring you a lot of success.
Boom. Rolando, I've asked that question about 500 times to real life entrepreneurs, but no one's ever given that example and those insights that you just shared with us. So I love that answer. I appreciate you sharing those perspectives and that advice with all of our listeners worldwide. And I also think it's just such an example, not only about how brilliant your business mind is, which it for sure is, and I knew that ahead of today's episode, but also just how transparent you are in the way that you think about strategy, the way you think about intentionality, and the way that you operate and show up in the world. So Rolando, with all of those things in mind, I'm personally very excited for listeners to check out your business and all the great work that you're doing on your website. You've got entire sections dedicated to web apps and websites that Elliptic Marketing is putting together for your clients, email marketing, event experiences, so much good stuff that you're putting out into the world. So drop those links on us. Where should listeners go from here?
Yeah, you can check out ellipticmarketing.com, or if you want to follow me personally, just look me up on LinkedIn, Rolando Rojas. I try to post a little bit more often now, just about business ideas, marketing ideas, and just things that I think break the mold a little bit, but have worked for me.
Yes, listeners, you already know the drill. We are making it as easy as possible for you to find those links down below in the show notes, no matter where it is that you're tuning into today's episode. You can find Rolando's main business website at ellipticmarketing.com. You can click right on through down below in the show notes. We're also linking to his personal LinkedIn. So Rolando, on behalf of myself and all the listeners worldwide, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you.